announced very soon. So.
Thank you, sir.
Mhm.
Are there any further questions for Vice President Tiani? Seeing none, thank you. Oh, Mr. Jones, you have a question?
The volunteer force,
Mhm.
would that encompass everything, any organization on campus? Would that be a one organization where students go there to submit their volunteer applications?
Can you clarify? It's like,
Because you know how the organizations do different
Right,
emails,
okay.
so say volunteer.
it's specific for student government, particularly with my cabinet with focusing on programming, because the students that would get involved generally are someone that has expressed interest in programming particularly, but we see it as a way, so it's essentially whenever we have an event coming up or we're beginning to plan something, that we can send an email out to them, get in contact with them, have regular meetings so they can be involved in the process at kind of their availability, I guess, and then but it's particularly focused on the programming aspects, though. But if, say, the Senate were to put on an event or something, or needed volunteers to help, with the completion or the execution of whatever they're doing, then they would be at their disposal as well. But it's primarily focused on programming aspects of the student government.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Tonight, a report from Comptroller Lewandowski.
For those of you that don't know me, my name is Ed. I am the Comptroller for Student Government. So a couple of quick points from the general office. The next report, public report of the expenditures for the quarter for the undergraduate, for the student government is going to come out at the end of the month. The release for the final end of the quarter is October 31st, so it will come out probably sometime early November for that. Nick Rosado is resigning effective November 1st for the Audit Commissioner. Associate Comptroller Heidi Geiler and former Comptroller Eric Goldstein will serve on the Audit Search Committee. Will be the deadline for that. I will go on to a little bit more for this part. And I'll also be serving on the search committee for replacement for the Director of IT. For Auto, as I said, Commissioner Rosado is resigning effective October 31st. The timeline for that applications are going to be due October 13th. Interviews will be the following week. I've scheduled a week for interviews. And the candidate will be up for confirmation by the Senate. And their new start date will be November 1st. The bike lending tour that I talked about 2 weeks ago, we had a bike lending tour with Stephen Price, who is a member of AU Public Safety. He is also a certified DC tour guide. There was a tour of the National Mall and some of the interesting facts on there. It was a great success. All the bikes that we have in the student government fleet was actually out using on that, so it was pretty successful. We'll be planning on continuing these definitely again during the spring semester. And then Capital Bike Share opened up on Ward Circle. As you guys see, that's the one where you can actually rent bikes for as long as you want. However, that one is a paid service. You need to pay a membership fee to join that. You also pay by the hour for it, so we feel that bike lending will not really have much of an impact because it is still free for all AU students to rent a bike for 6 hours at a time. So we feel that even with the addition there, and we welcome the addition there, I'm pushing more people that are not AU students to use bikes for travel services. But we feel that bike lending will still be fully functional and actually improved by raising this awareness.
Are there any questions for Comptroller Lewandowski? Seeing none, thanks, sir. Now move on to a brief report by President Bronstein. All right, I wasn't sure if you're paying.
As you can see by the color coding of this PowerPoint or document, what I have to say is very serious. Now, I am presenting outside of my typical reporting time because I wanted to go over a new co-sponsorship protocol we're working on. This is actually a lovely green. It's not coming out on the projector, but I can assure you we picked out a good shade of green. But let me just quickly run through what this protocol is because I wanted to run it by all of you before I put it in executive order form. I'll probably do that by midweek next week or so. We start out just making a few points that basically this is for sponsorships in which other organizations request our sponsorship. So this isn't like for, say, an event that we're putting on and other organizations want to get involved in ours. This is another organization, non-SG, has an event, and they ask us to sponsor. So that's basically what it is. It's for SG General, VP General, and DOPAR. So the individual departments may have their separate system. But moving on from that, what we started is by saying that there are 3 basic forms of sponsorship. It may be financial, communication-based, or human resource-based. Then we sort of broke it down into three basic groups, level 1, which is the green, and level 3, which is the red. Red being the bigger sponsorship, green being the lower. We basically said that financially speaking, about under $200 would fall under that first level. That would, it would also include anything from like websites, social media, so Facebook, Twitter, public calendars, and just having attendance at the event. Then we moved on to the second level, which is anything from $200 to just under $500. That would include chalkings, print advertisement, the street team, fireside chats, emails, as well as tabling participation and human resources. And then finally, the highest level is 500 or more. That would include banners, t-shirts, video media, giveaways, as well as cleanup and setup of the event, event volunteering, event planning services, and event planning services. The idea being, if we get to the level 3 sponsorship, we play such an integral role, it almost becomes our event as well. Would you mind scrolling down, please? Thank you. So the protocol works like this. Step 1 is just figuring out if it falls in line with our mission. And it doesn't need to necessarily directly correlate. It just can't necessarily oppose our mission statement. If that's successful, then we move on to step 2, which is essentially saying if we were given enough time and notice to properly sponsor the event. What I said is level 1 sponsorships need about 1 week in advance. Level 2 and 3 sponsorships need at least 2 weeks in advance. If it's level 3, it probably needs a little more than that. Step 3 doesn't violate any rules or regulations. This is not just governing documents, legislations, and our own policies, but also other rules and regulations such as the 501c3 status of the university. If it does not violate any of that, then we move on to step 4, which is have the proper SG officials been notified of the event. So if it's from a specific department, has that director been notified? Has the overseeing executive been notified? So on and so forth. Step 5 is determining the sponsorship level. So this is where I really get into the different colors. Would you mind scrolling down a little bit more? Thank you very much. As I showed you before, we did break it down into 3 levels. And depending on the level of sponsorship, there are certain things that we get along with sponsoring the event. So for example, if it's level 1, our logo should be on all the advertising material. If it's level 2, as I mentioned before, we really need 2 weeks notice. But our logo should be present on all the advertising material, and we can have our banner at the event as well. Level 3, we get a lot more. We can have our banner at the event, our logo, and all the material. We need to approve the advertising before, since we're so committed to the event. And that's regardless of whether or not it's banners, giveaways, t-shirts, you name it. We should have the option to speak or present at the event, and we should have the option to distribute materials as well. And then I also put a little note that if the distribution of materials or anything like that takes away from the event, then obviously that's something we will not do.